Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Mr. Martiniello, for this wonderful presentation because it actually frames my presentation really well. So I'm going to talk about culture and inclusion in the Nordic countries. And in this sense, today I'm talking about Scandinavia, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. And I come from the Arts Council Norway, which is a cultural authority, and we're talking about what has been done previously in culture politics, what can be done, and what are the challenges to the cultural sector. And you had this one sentence saying that previously cultural policies has not been framed for immigrants. But looking at it now, what do we do when we want to frame it for immigrants and for a new group? My project first, just briefly, is coming out of the Nordic Council of Ministers. We in Norway have the chairmanship, presidency of the Nordic Council of Ministers this year, 2017, is giving it onwards to Sweden next year. And during a program, during our presidency, we create a program of focus areas. And one of the focus areas is integration in the Nordic region. And we want to learn from each other. And especially we want to learn from each other's policies and each other's what we've done in the cultural sectors when it comes to integration. So my task is to bring together experiences from all the Scandinavian and Nordic countries and see what works and what doesn't work. Why this focus is because we have seen that immigration to the Nordic countries are quite similar. We've started having immigration to Sweden, Norway and Denmark in the 70s with work immigration. And lately there has been quite a surge of immigration from countries like Syria, Somalia, Poland, Iraq and Eritrea, Afghanistan, India and China. The population of Norway is now 13.8% of the population in Norway is of immigrant background, meaning both refugees and those with first and second immigration background. 12.3% in Denmark and in Sweden up to 30%. And of course this brings to the forefront issues of how to include a new population. Our project, the Culture and Inclusion in the Nordic countries, has decided to focus on three main areas. We try to broaden the horizon in the public debate, make new voices into the public debate. We want to work with inclusive institutions, that meaning cultural institutions, museums, libraries, etc. And we also want to work with inclusive and diverse local communities. And this is where, of course, your presentation framed my speech as well, because this is what I'm going to focus on now. We have been focusing on inclusive local communities because that seems to be a key to some of the issues that we are talking about today, the culture and inclusion. I will present an example of three examples today, and from Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, where we have applied models of working with culture and inclusion. And from this, I will derive 3 Nordic lessons. And I will also discuss briefly how we can balance between the so-called retaining cultural identity and the supporting diversity in cultural policies. The first initiative that I would like to present to you is a Swedish initiative called Creative Places. It is the Swedish Arts Council that will be allocating 100 million Swedish kronor over a period of 2016 to 2018 to project all across Sweden. The project carry out cultural activities based on the needs of local residents and in collaboration with local stakeholders. To this day, it comprises 27 projects all over Sweden, and those who live in those areas should be included as project participants, cultural practitioners and audiences. This model is applied from a similar project in England called Creative People and Places, who has been running for over 10 years with really great results. And what we see is that cultural activities and cultural participation is highly increased in areas that are not normally participatory in arts. I would just show you the brief video of the introduction to this project. It has English subtitles, so please...
Kreativa platser är ett bidrag och har syftet att lyfta det befintliga engagemanget som finns i olika bostadsområden runt om i Sverige. Och meningen är att boenden ska ha möjlighet att driva kulturlivet på platsen där man bor.
Idag ska vi genomföra en uppstartsträff för satsningen Kreativa platser. Det kommer komma deltagare från 27 olika projekt från hela landet.
Kreativa platser är viktigt därför att Sverige behöver mer kultur till fler. Sverige behöver mötesplatser och vi som bor här behöver sammanhang. Vi behöver lära känna varandra.
Att våga utgå från människor och våga utgå från och ha tillit
This
till
is
att
the Minister of
själva
Culture
är
and
de
Democracy
bästa på
in
att
Sweden
identifiera
talking.
sina egna behov till förändring. Vi måste våga tro på att individer tillsammans kan lösa och göra. Och det finns liksom inga omvägar, för det kostar också. Det kostar i kronor. Det kostar i mod att våga prioritera det. Och det kostar i att man ibland gör fel.
Vi kommer att få resa här inne idag. En omvänd Nils Holgersson-resa som börjar i norra Sverige och tar oss från Luleå och Hertsön ner till Malmö.
Vårt projekt Lyssna på oss är ett projekt där vi ska fånga upp känslan i samhället. Vi är ett samhälle där det har varit mycket neddragningar, så att nu vill vi vända det och nu ska det bli en positiv anda.
När vi pratade med boende i området Gärdet så var det att en känsla av att det kommer att smälla eller brinna i Bollnäs inom tid.
You can look further on the video on YouTube if you want to, but the basic thing to say about this is that the model has proven from England to be able to include a large part of a population in socially excluded areas to be involved in the arts, and it has created a highly sense of belonging in those communities through involvement in those projects. I will also present to you briefly Tabanka Dance Ensemble, which is an artistic initiative from Norway. Tabanka is both a school, a commercial, and an artistic company. Tabanka is determined to represent the best within African and Caribbean dance forms. Tabanka is well known for both national and international TV performances, has also made a name for themselves through making a Talava technique, an innovative movement system designed to master Africanistic dance. What Tabanka do is that they fuse Africanistic dance moves with Norwegian reality. They do take point of departure of what they are experiences as Africans in Norway, and addressing racism, addressing the feeling of disconnection, and dancing it, basically. They have performed at the opera. I will just show you briefly some of their dance. Tabanka is not only artists, they are also a system or a school of giving back to community. They cover youth work, teaching dance, they give back to society and develop a professional dance company. Culture, in this sense, becomes a vehicle for social change, empowerment, and the individual and creative development. They all start with open classes and a low level, but you can end up in a professional ensemble that dances actually at the Norwegian opera. This is a really crucial point that I'm going to make further afterwards. The last example is Street Mecca in Denmark. Game and Street Mecca is an initiative and an NGO founded in 2002. It consists of young volunteers, playmakers, and it can be found in all less advantaged neighborhoods in Denmark, doing practices in street basket, parkour, dance, and street soccer. They have also moved to Lebanon, actually. Games' mission is to create a lasting social change through youth-led street sports and culture. And the program is a fusion of different urban sports, dance and urban culture, and an effort to bridge between the differences. I will also show you, I hope, then it stopped working. Okay. Okay, so we don't get to see that one. Yeah, there it goes. Is it on? No. Okay, Street Mecca, you can see that later. It's some of the same basic principles as the two before. They are working on training, education, and professionalism. It starts with open classes, but through a collaboration with professional cultural partners, you can receive education as professional dancer. And this is one of its kind in Scandinavia. Actually, the people that I talked about from Norway, Tabanka, had their professional dance education validated in Denmark in the Street Mecca school. It is really important to talk about this professionalism part of the programs, because when it comes to the lessons that we can learn from what culture can do when it comes to making an effort in inclusion and a sense of belonging, professionalism is actually one of the key words. All of the projects that I've encountered have models where you can reach higher, where you can learn more and get professional within a certain area, be it dance, be it theater, or any of the projects that you want to engage in. You can also start on a low level, so it's a very open model where you can come from a low level of cultural involvement and advance through a whole process. The other thing that we've learned from these models is that it takes point of the partner in a place, a local community, as you have talked so eloquently about. And we see that the program, the people that are in the program have an increased sense of belonging in their community, and it has led to a greater sense of community cohesion in these models. The second, the third thing it must be, it says second here, but the last thing is the power aspect of this, the power of defining what is good culture and how to use culture is given to the citizens. They themselves are involved in framing the projects and creating the cultural activities themselves. They're also part of evaluating them and giving them back by becoming, for instance, trainers or volunteers within the same program. So it is ecology that works. When the Creative People and Places project were researched, they concluded that excellence in art and community engagement is now understood as being linked by many cultural authorities. And this is very new to us when it comes to how we should work with cultural policies. And this, I just meant briefly to mention this quote from the report from the EU of the role of public arts and cultural institutions in the promotion of cultural diversity and intercultural dialogue. It says, this challenge, cultural diversity, is also a major opportunity to seek out and embrace a wealth of talent brought by new individuals and communities, and to allow hybridization and innovation in artistic creation. And this is some of the basic thinking of these models that I've provided. They do not think of their project as help project, as to now we're going to go out and help some socially excluded individual, but they do think as these social areas as innovative and talented individuals, which is a change in perception. I'm having a little problem with this. There we go. So reflection on how this goes back to identity and culture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to juxtapose a little bit the local perspective with the national perspective of what culture is and can do. Just to say something about what we are up against also when we think about changing cultural policies. So, of course, the starting point of these projects that I've shown you is diversity, whereas much of the national arts policy has as a starting point art itself. Art has to be good. Also, the models that I've shown you have both amateur and professionals in them, whereas the national level of arts politics are often a very strict divide between professional and amateur. At least it is in our countries, where the professional character of being a professional artist is very different from being an amateur artist, and you get different funding, and you get funding from different places. We can also see that the models that I've shown you, or the projects that I've shown you, have initiatives from the grassroots, whereas national cultural policies are often initiated from an artistic point of view or by artists, often also institutions. This makes a challenge. We can also see that the projects, they have quality in process and empowerment and the lived experiences of the participants, whereas in the national culture policies, it often talked about quality in product. We evaluate the product, be it the theater, be it the concert, etc. Also, very many of these initiatives that I've shown you have a non-Western and often also commercialized expressions as point of departure. They do African dance, or they do urban dance, or hip-hop, rap, etc., which is not often included in the more national cultural policies, where the Western and more Nordic expressions are highlighted. Also, these local initiatives have a more open identity, or in the sense that you can prescribe your identity into the local communities. I will go a little bit into this further, but you've talked a lot about it. Whereas the national cultural policies often are exclusive, be it that it is certain institutions and artists that can decide how the cultural practices are being done. So this brings me to the sense of belonging. When it comes to the point on open or closed identity that I had in the last slide, this has also been researched by Kirsten Simonsen and Lasse Kofod in the anthology Ambiguity in the Urban Belonging. Or they researched Copenhagen citizens of Pakistani origin and their sense of belonging and identity. And the finding was that belonging and identity was closely linked to the local community of Copenhagen in this case. And at the same time, they experienced a sense of estrangement from the national identity. This is also what you talked about, of course. It is a conclusion that the experience of estrangement apparently have only marginal influence on the possibility of belonging, because local urban communities makes a sense of belonging possible. It is, of course, the inclusiveness of national cultural politics has been deliberate previously. It is a protective discourse that has been established because of the historic developments. We have to build a nation, establishing national institutions, national museums, national theaters, etc. We also need to preserve cultural heritage through cultural politics. And we have also been protecting national cultural heritage from the global and mainstream culture effects, mainly the US culture influence from the time after the World War II. So these are basically the rooted experiences in Norway that makes cultural politics on the national level more exclusive. But at the moment we see, as you also mentioned, that the upcoming and new artists are challenging these basic foundations. And institutions are also beginning to see that they have to revise and change in order to include a new generation of artists that are not only Norwegian but have a more global connection. So therefore, I would just like to leave you, and I'm actually 1 minute. It's because I didn't get to show the video, I think. With this quote from Woolman Michel Luciano, who is a dancer in Tabanka. When you create art, you change the world. We are changing Norway, step by step, movement by movement. We are redefining the institution. We are changing who is the audience and who are the performers. We are changing what is seen and sensed by whom and where. It is powerful. As dancers, we create movement, physical, social, societal, political, yes, even spiritual, for those so inclined. We are opposed to the status quo. We are movers, shakers, literally and figuratively. So now we just need to figure out how to include that sense in our national cultural policies. Thank you.